Monument Valley, one of America's most iconic landscapes. You might recognize it from the old Wild West movies, but to me, it's home. My people have lived on this land for generations. The towering sandstone rocks are written about in our creation stories. But the stories you've probably heard about us are a lot more simplistic. Tales of good guys and bad guys, cowboys and Indians. My people have a long tradition of storytelling, but for a century, someone else has told our stories. The Western has proved to be one of cinema's most durable genres. Again and again, Hollywood has trotted out stories of tough guy heroes saving the homestead from the natives. When I think of old Hollywood Westerns, I think of the cowboys versus the Indians, and the Indians being the bad guys, the noble savages, the mystical medicine man, and the white savior narrative. We were never stars of those films, just props. Why does this matter? Because if you can't tell your story, you don't have a voice. And if you don't have a voice, you don't get a say. Equality feels like a privilege enjoyed by other people. This vast country used to belong to us, but today Native Americans make up just 1% of the population. We mostly live on reservations, small parcels of land managed by a tribe and administered by the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs. But we do lead the rest of the country in some ways. Rates of poverty, alcoholism, domestic violence, and suicide are higher for Native Americans than for anyone else. I'm Allie Young, a Native American from the Diné tribe, more commonly known as the Navajo. I left the reservation to come to Hollywood. I've managed to find work both behind and in front of the camera. Unfortunately, the acting jobs I get offered tend to be stereotypical Native roles.
Raised by Indians!
I actually walked off the set of the Adam Sandler movie, The Ridiculous Six, back in 2015 because of the way it portrayed Native Americans. Now I'm on a journey back to the reservation to try and discover the true story of our people. Are we the victims of government repression, or do we bear the responsibility ourselves? I want Native Americans to be able to find their voice, and that means I need to ask some tough questions of leaders, inside and outside my reservation, and even my own family. We're traveling along Route 66, nearly 4,000 kilometers of historic tarmac that once stretched from Los Angeles to Chicago. Route 66 skirts around the Navajo Nation, the biggest reservation in the country, covering more than 70,000 square kilometers and housing nearly 200,000 people. But my journey begins in Los Angeles, the city of angels. A place that exerts a magnetic pull on young dreamers from across America. And so it was for me. I had a dream of telling my people's stories and changing the Native American narrative.
It's political. It's a systematic racism that has been created and has been justified, and it still continues to be justified here in society.
What do you say to people who say it's just a film, it's make-believe, it's fantasy? How is it so damaging to Native Americans?
The damage that it's created with our youth, we see it, we hear it in our community. We don't hear about it in mainstream media. We don't hear that we have a high rate of suicides. We have kids hanging themselves because of how they see themselves, or they don't see themselves. So it does. I mean, it's affected me, obviously, because I am emotional about it. And I have people that I know that have killed themselves because they feel that they're not wanted.
It's about a 10-hour drive from Los Angeles to Gallup, New Mexico, through the wide open landscapes of the American Southwest. Gallup is an ordinary town with a couple of extraordinary features. It's surrounded on 3 sides by Native American reservation land. People come to Gallup to find employment or to buy alcohol, which is banned on the reservation. Every day, groups of men roam the streets, begging or looking for work. Every night, they seek shelter, refuge, a place to drink and forget. Most of them are Native. Gallup's police department pick up around 80 drunk people a day and place them in protective custody until they sober up. The sheer scale of the problem has led to Gallup's unfortunate nickname, Drunk Town, USA. When we arrive in Gallup, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's time to go to work. Or, for those in the grip of an alcohol addiction, it's time to find that first drink. Jared says he came to Gallup looking for work. But after he didn't get any callbacks, his life began to unravel, and his wife and children left him.
I don't really usually drink, just every now and then, just to have my mind straight, have happiness. That's where it comes, If I ain't getting it at home or anywhere else, that's what it is. Alcohol is happiness.
Our interview is interrupted by the police, who chased Jared's companion into the street, seemingly not to arrest him, but to frighten him. It's a disturbing introduction to life in a reservation border town, and left me with a lot of questions for Gallup's mayor.
And alcoholism is prevalent amongst the Native population here in Gallup. What has your office done to address that issue?
It is something I've dealt with every day I'm on my second term in office. It's something I've dealt with every day to provide the services for the people that need them. Alcoholism is a major issue, but alcoholism isn't a Native American issue. It's around the world and it's around America. Where you have poverty, you have alcoholism. When people don't have jobs.
That always makes me wonder then, like in these border towns right by the reservation, why the Native population is so impoverished.
We can't hire and employ everybody that's needing a job, which creates the large unemployment issues on the reservation. In the city, we're fortunate, but we work real hard to keep striving for more economic development within our community and our county.
It was time to leave Gallup and enter the reservation. It's like a breath of fresh air when I come onto the reservation. It's a very simple life. I think if many others who are non-Native came out here, they would see poverty. It could be compared to a third world country, but as a Diné person, it's our culture, it's our way of life. As Diné people, we are brought up to worship Mother Earth and Father Sky. And that's why it angers us when international mining corporations come to the reservation. In traditional Navajo culture, we're taught to give back to the earth when we take from her, to give an offering and to say thank you. But corporations like the one behind me extract oil, extract coal, and contaminate our water, and they give nothing back to the earth. But she's telling us that she's hurting because the lakes are drying up. The Peabody mine near Kayenta uses this lake to wash and transport coal on its journey to the local power station. It's a major employer on the reservation, which means residents are forced to choose between a steady job, which goes against their beliefs, or impoverishment. Edward Klitzow knows this dilemma all too well. He spent 34 years working the reservation mines, digging up coal, as well as deadly uranium. During the Cold War, the U.S. government was desperate for homegrown uranium to use in their atomic weapons program. More than 30 million tons of uranium was extracted from our reservation, employing thousands of local workers. But worker protection laws were almost non-existent, and people like Edward are still suffering from the consequences. He can only breathe with the help of a machine and blames the mining company. Away from the mines, many Navajo try to live a simple life without losing touch with the spiritual world and the teachings of their ancestors. My grandfather is a medicine man. I've come to see him today to receive a blessing and good fortune on my journey. Medicine men believe good health is ingrained in spiritual forces, related to universal balance and harmony.
We use crystal and we use water to find out, see if everything is okay with you. If we see something wrong, well, we usually help you with that to correct, and with prayers and songs.
Are you worried that the knowledge and the traditions of the medicine men won't be passed down?
My grandfather used to tell me not to worry, but he used to always tell me, have a strong faith, not negative, think positive way all the time, because that's how you're gonna go on with medicine man's life.
But it's hard to put a positive spin on the facts about life on the reservation. In a survey by the U.S. Department of Justice, nearly 4 out of 10 Native women identified as being victims of violence by their partner. More than 1 in 3 Native women will be raped during their lifetime. More than 1 in 10 deaths of Native Americans are alcohol-related. That's 3 times higher than the general population. And young Native American men have a higher suicide rate than any other group in the United States. My family has been affected by all of these issues. But what hit me especially hard was losing my brother. I wish I knew what was going on in his head when he decided to do this. But you know, that's the hard part of dealing with suicide, is you just don't know. And but he committed suicide. You know, my mom and I were out one morning getting breakfast, and then we were living at my grandparents' house, and my grandma was calling my cell phone, and she seemed panicked, and she said she wanted to speak to my mother, so I gave her the phone, and my mom screamed, and I was like, what is going on? And she couldn't get anything out. We got to go in and see him, and it was very hard to see my little brother, who was my best friend for my whole life, lying there, lifeless. Losing my brother was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. For a while, I questioned my faith in Navajo teachings. My grandfather would tell me, he would try to tell me, you know, go to where you guys played. Go to where you remember him. That's where he is. And so one day I did. You know, I didn't go to the cemetery. I went to the place where we grew up, and I sat there and I looked out I saw him for the first time, and he was alive. It felt like he was alive, and his spirit was present, and I could feel him, and I was finally at peace, and I was happy, and I was like, wow, this is what my grandpa was talking about. And that's when I first realized the strength of Mother Earth. On the reservation, good quality houses for our people are in short supply. Some estimates say 300,000 new homes are needed. But the Navajo Housing Authority and its building partners have spent hundreds of millions of tax dollars on projects haunted by cost overruns, delays, and poor workmanship. And auditors say tens of millions of dollars have been wasted on failed projects. In Tolani Lake, the ruins of one of these projects still stand. 24 houses built in the style of traditional Navajo Hogan dwellings sit vacant on a high prairie. Around $7 million has been spent on these homes since 2003. No one has ever lived here. All that money literally went up in smoke. In May this year, the president of the Navajo Nation sacked the entire board of the Navajo Housing Authority. I've come to ask him how he plans to make things better for our people.
That they had huge issues. I mean, they had huge issues where they were just misspending, misappropriating monies at the top level.
Your administration just replaced everyone in the Navajo Housing Authority. Have you seen an improvement since that?
They're just now getting into it, and they are making progress, they're making changes, things that we really need to make some core changes, fundamental, basic changes for the culture to change. Because if you're going to change something, first people make changes. It doesn't matter how much money you pay them, what their job descriptions are, what their positions are. Is that person that is in these critical positions, they're the ones that make that difference.
You know, when a lot of people look at our Native people, they think that we rely on the government for handouts. Can you comment on that? And is that true? Has it affected our people? Have we become dependent on federal handouts?
Well, first of all, we gave up massive amount of land. The rights to our minerals was taken away from us. The treaties that we sign, we must never let the government get away with that, is that we gave up all of this for education, for health, for other basic needs, for housing, things like that. And if they lived up to the treaties, we would not have 50-year-old, 80-year-old school buildings today. Because, it's a contract. A treaty is a contract, and they've not lived up to it.
The president did manage to convince me that he's passionate about changing how we are governed after decades of mismanagement. But if we really are to change our story, that change has to come from all of us. We all need to go on a journey of self-discovery. And that's exactly what John L. Sosi is doing. He's walking 150 miles from Window Rock under the glare of the searing sun to raise awareness of domestic violence among the Navajo community. His father accompanies him on the walk, and they have plenty of time to reflect on the cycle of violence that ruined their family.
I came home one day, got into the house, my wife and I had a big argument, and I left, I was stormed out, she followed me. And she picked up a big rock and she threw it at my truck windshield and shattered it. And I jumped out, I was going right after her, and I stopped all of a sudden. There's my other son, Ernie, he was just about this high. And he had his fists up like this, tears coming down. He wanted to fight me to protect his mom. When I saw that, I said, this What am I doing? My own son wants to fight me.
John and his father turned their family tragedy into a campaigning organization to help others escape the cycle of violence that plagues our communities.
Our children are watching us live, and what we are shouts louder than anything we can ever say.
It's time to meet another man who fell into that cycle. A man whose alcoholism turned to violence and destroyed his family. My father.
I'm a good person when I'm not drinking back then, but when I drank, when I was intoxicated, sometimes very drunk, I get very violent. And that's when the abuse started.
My dad has been sober for 26 years and now works as an addiction counselor. We've never really talked about how his drinking affected our family when we were growing up.
I mean, I was too young to know what was happening because you stopped drinking when I was like 1. And, but I think the aftermath of everything, I think that's sort of what I felt. And, I don't blame you. But it was more of your relationship with Mom. She became a victim. So I don't regret my childhood. I don't resent anyone. But I do realize that alcoholism has a very negative effect.
I grew up in a traditional home, and I was raised well. And somewhere along the way, I was abused, sexually abused when I was a young boy. And I didn't know that was one of the main problems that got me into alcoholism. Didn't know that until I started college. When I was studying psychology, I've learned that that was why I got to drink very bad. In a way, college was my treatment, because everything I've learned there, I used to evaluate myself.
I came on this journey to try and discover the true story of our Native American people. Is it the story of the Hollywood Indian with his peace pipes and smoke signals? Or is it the victim narrative, the story of a marginalized people who've given up on life and fallen into a cycle of alcoholism and violence? Or maybe there's another story of a proud people with a rich and incredibly spiritual culture, who suffered the mass trauma of colonization and genocide as modern America was founded. Our medicine men believe that this trauma can be passed down through the generations, and it's easy to see why when you think of the issues we face. But if Native Americans want an equal chance for prosperity and health, at least some of the answers lie with us. Today we have a chance to heal ourselves. And I found on my journey that there was a lot of work being done in our communities to do just that. We need to continue down that path with even more force. and to demand a seat at every social and political table. If we can be open about our problems and work to find solutions, I believe we can change our destiny.